Most people are taught to accept weakness as a natural part of aging. They're told that bones thin, joints stiffen, balance fades, and eventually the body simply wears out. It sounds scientific, it sounds unavoidable, and because it's repeated so often, most people never question it. But here's something few realize. Bones don't weaken because time passes. They weaken because something crucial disappears from daily life. Something so small, so ordinary, that almost no one notices when it's gone. And by the time the pain appears, the damage has already been happening quietly for years. What makes this frightening is not the weakness itself, but the silence. Bones don't scream when they begin to lose strength. They don't ache. They don't warn you. They slowly adjust to what they believe your future will be. If your body stops sending the message that strength is needed, your bones assume your life no longer requires it. And so they begin to let go, layer by layer, cell by cell, preparing you for a smaller, more fragile version of life than you ever intended. In Japan, doctors who spent decades studying aging noticed something that didn't make sense at first. They saw elderly patients well into their 80s and 90s who moved with confidence, climbed stairs without fear, and recovered from minor falls without serious injury. Yet these individuals weren't athletes. Many had never stepped foot in a gym. Some had arthritis. Others had lived through injuries or illnesses that should have weakened them. And yet their bones remained surprisingly resilient. The doctors asked a simple question: what were these people doing differently? The answer wasn't found in medicine cabinets. It wasn't hidden in expensive supplements or complex treatments. It was hidden in routine, in habits so ordinary they were invisible. These individuals performed a small daily ritual, often in the morning, sometimes without even thinking about it, that gently reminded their bodies they were still active participants in life. 5 minutes, that's all it took. And that 5 minutes sent a signal that echoed through their entire skeletal system. To understand why this matters, you need to understand how bones actually work. Bones are not static structures. They are living tissue, constantly responding to information. Every step you take, every reach, every shift of balance sends microscopic signals through your skeleton. When those signals are present, bones reinforce themselves. When they disappear, bones begin to thin. This process doesn't stop at a certain age. What stops is the signal itself. Here's where modern life quietly works against us. Chairs, cars, screens, convenience. Over time, movement becomes optional, then minimal, then cautious. Eventually, many people move only as much as they must, and the body, always adapting, interprets that reduction as a message. We don't need strength anymore. Bones respond exactly as instructed. What's tragic is that most people don't realize this until the first fall. One wrong step, one slippery floor, one moment of imbalance, and suddenly everything changes. A fracture leads to fear. Fear leads to less movement. Less movement leads to weaker bones. And the cycle accelerates. This is why one fall after 60 often becomes the beginning of decline, not because the body can't recover, but because no one teaches it how. Japanese physicians began documenting something remarkable. Elderly individuals who practiced this daily 5-minute ritual not only experienced fewer fractures, but they also stood taller. Their posture improved. Their walking became more fluid. Even their breathing patterns changed, and perhaps most importantly, their confidence returned. Because when the body feels stable, the mind follows. This ritual wasn't about force, it wasn't about intensity, it wasn't about pushing limits. In fact, doing too much reduced its effectiveness. The power came from rhythm, consistency, and intention. Gentle movements performed daily created just enough stress to activate bone-building cells without triggering pain or fatigue, and bones, remarkably obedient, responded.
What most people don't know is that bone cells don't age the way skin or hair does. They don't retire at 60. They remain capable of rebuilding well into old age. The only requirement is stimulation. Without it, they shut down. With it, they wake up.
This explains why two people of the same age can have dramatically different bone strength. It explains why some 70-year-olds move like 50-year-olds, while others feel fragile at 60. And it explains why the belief that bone loss is inevitable is one of the most damaging myths of aging. Fear plays a powerful role here. Fear of pain, fear of falling, fear of doing something wrong. Many people avoid movement because they believe rest is safer, but the body interprets avoidance as surrender. Ironically, the very thing people avoid to stay safe is what makes them vulnerable in the first place. Doctors in Japan observed that once elderly patients understood this, everything changed. When fear was replaced with understanding, movement returned. When movement returned, strength followed. And when strength followed, independence was preserved. If you're watching this and thinking, why has no one told me this before? You're not alone. This knowledge doesn't spread easily because it doesn't rely on fear, urgency, or expensive solutions. It relies on consistency. And consistency doesn't sound dramatic until you realize what's at stake. Right now, your bones are listening. They are either receiving signals that say, I'm still needed, or silence that says, prepare for less. That message is being sent every single day, whether you're aware of it or not. This is why subscribing matters. Information like this isn't loud, it doesn't trend easily, but it protects futures. And if you're serious about staying strong, steady, and independent as the years pass, you need access to knowledge most people never hear until it's too late. What makes this 5-minute ritual so powerful is not what it looks like from the outside, but what it quietly changes on the inside of the body. To someone watching, it may appear almost unimpressive. Slow movements, gentle motions, no visible strain, no sweat. And that is exactly why most people underestimate it. We've been trained to believe that health must hurt, that improvement must exhaust us, that progress must feel dramatic. But the body doesn't rebuild itself through drama. It rebuilds itself through clarity. Inside the body, when these movements begin, muscles awaken gradually, not by force, but by cooperation. They stretch, contract, and release in smooth patterns that feel safe rather than threatening. And when muscles move this way, they gently tug on the bones they are attached to. That tug is subtle, but it is powerful. It tells the skeleton, you are still needed. And for bones, that message changes everything. Bones do not respond to punishment, they respond to purpose. Unlike muscles which grow through fatigue, bones grow through communication. Each gentle pull from a moving muscle sends microscopic vibrations through the bone's structure. These vibrations act like a wake-up call to bone-building cells that may have been dormant for years. The remarkable part is that these cells do not ask how old you are. They do not check your birth certificate. They only respond to signals. When those signals arrive regularly, bone tissue begins reinforcing itself from the inside out, strengthening the internal framework that prevents fractures and instability. This process is slow, but it is dependable, and it works not because the movement is intense, but because it is consistent. This is why people who have tried everything often fail. They were trying to force results instead of speaking the body's language. This also explains why so many well-intentioned efforts backfire. People hear they need to strengthen their bones, so they push themselves too hard. They lift weights they're not ready for. They perform movements their joints can't tolerate. Pain appears, fear follows, and once fear enters the body, progress stops. The nervous system shifts into protection mode, muscles tighten, movements shorten, and instead of building strength, the body builds defense. Japanese doctors discovered something critical here. Bones rebuild best when the nervous system feels safe. When the body does not sense danger, it allows adaptation.
Gentle rhythm creates that sense of safety. Predictable motion calms the brain. Calm allows muscles to move freely. Free movement sends clean, uninterrupted signals to bones. And when those signals arrive day after day, the body begins rebuilding without resistance.
One of the Japanese doctors who studied this phenomenon for decades explained it in a way that stayed with everyone who heard it. He said the body does not need to be shocked into strength, it needs to be invited. That single sentence reframed everything doctors thought they knew about aging. When people feel pushed, judged, or pressured, their bodies resist. But when movement feels like an invitation rather than a command, the body responds willingly. That's why this ritual works even for people who believed they were too far gone. There is no intimidation involved, no pressure to perform, just a quiet conversation between movement and structure. Each motion says, you're safe, you're capable, you're still part of life. And over time, the body begins to believe it again. Another layer of this ritual reveals itself when balance starts to improve. Most people think balance is something you either have or lose forever, but balance is actually a skill, one that depends on constant communication between your brain, inner ear, joints, muscles, and bones. Gentle movement challenges balance without overwhelming it. Each small shift in weight, each controlled sway forces the body to recalibrate. The brain receives feedback, the joints respond, the bones support, and slowly the entire system becomes more coordinated. Doctors noticed that patients practicing this ritual didn't just move better, they moved more confidently. Confidence reduces hesitation. Hesitation causes missteps, and missteps are what lead to falls. Improving balance, even slightly, dramatically lowers fracture risk. And the best part? This improvement often begins before people feel stronger, simply because their awareness has sharpened. What surprised researchers even more was how quickly this sense of confidence returned. Many elderly patients reported feeling steadier within just a few weeks, not stronger yet, but more present in their bodies. They became more aware of how they stood, how they shifted their weight, how they turned. That awareness alone changed behavior. When people feel connected to their movements, they move with intention instead of fear. And fear is one of the most dangerous enemies of stability. Fear causes stiffness. Stiffness disrupts balance, and disrupted balance leads to falls. By restoring awareness first, the ritual interrupts that dangerous chain reaction before it can begin.
There is a quiet psychological shift that begins once people realize their bodies are not as fragile as they believed. For years, many have lived under invisible rules. Don't bend too much, don't twist, don't reach, don't move suddenly. At first, these rules feel protective, but over time, they become restrictive. The body starts to move cautiously, even when caution is no longer necessary. Movements become smaller, steps become shorter. The body adapts to this limited range, and in doing so, it slowly forgets how capable it once was. This ritual begins reversing that belief gently. Each movement is a reminder that the body can still respond, not dramatically, not painfully, just reliably. And that reminder, repeated daily, begins to rewrite the story people tell themselves about aging. Doctors in Japan noticed something remarkable when this mental shift occurred. Once fear loosened its grip, movement naturally increased throughout the day. People walked a little longer, stood a little taller, turned more freely. These small changes added up. More movement meant more signals reaching the bones. More signals meant more reinforcement. The body did not suddenly become young again, but it became functional again. And function is what preserves independence. When people trust their bodies, they use them. When they use them, the body adapts. This is not motivation, this is biology responding to opportunity. One elderly man explained his experience in words that doctors later repeated to their students. He said he stopped moving because he thought his body was old. And then, slowly, he realized his body became old because he stopped moving. That realization changed everything. It removed blame and replaced it with responsibility. Not guilt, but empowerment. Aging was no longer something happening to him, it became something he could influence, and that shift alone altered how he approached each day. Instead of avoiding movement, he welcomed it. Instead of fearing strain, he respected rhythm, and his body responded accordingly.
As the body begins to move more freely, something else starts to improve quietly in the background: circulation. Most people underestimate how deeply circulation affects bone health. Bones are living tissue, but they depend entirely on blood flow to receive oxygen, minerals, and nutrients. When movement is limited, circulation slows. When circulation slows, bones receive less of what they need to repair themselves. This ritual gently increases blood flow without exhausting the heart or stressing the joints. Each movement acts like a pump, encouraging blood to move through areas that have been stagnant for years. Over time, this creates a healthier internal environment where bone tissue can finally repair instead of simply surviving. Improved circulation has another powerful effect that doctors did not initially expect. It changes how the body feels at rest. Many people who practiced this ritual reported less stiffness in the evenings and fewer aches during the night. Sleep became deeper, sleep became longer, and sleep is when the body does its most important repair work. During deep sleep, growth factors are released, inflammation decreases, and tissues rebuild. When sleep improves, recovery improves. When recovery improves, the effects of daily movement multiply. This is one reason the benefits of this ritual do not fade over time. They compound. Each day builds on the last. Over months of observation, physicians realized they were witnessing a chain reaction. Movement improved circulation, circulation improved sleep, sleep improved recovery, recovery improved strength, and strength improved confidence. What began as 5 minutes in the morning quietly transformed entire days. This is why people who commit to the ritual often describe it as life-changing, even though nothing about it feels extreme. The changes are subtle, but they are relentless, and once this cycle begins, it becomes self-sustaining. One of the biggest reasons people fail to see results from gentle movement rituals like this has nothing to do with age, flexibility, or even consistency. It has to do with impatience. Modern life has trained us to expect instant feedback. We want to feel stronger tomorrow. We want proof by the end of the week. But bones do not work on emotional timelines. They work on biological ones. Bone tissue rebuilds slowly, quietly beneath the surface, long before any visible change appears. This is where many people give up too early. They assume nothing is happening because they can't feel it yet. In reality, the foundation is forming. Tiny structural reinforcements are being laid down inside the bone, invisible but essential. Quitting during this phase is like stopping construction because you don't see the walls yet. Japanese doctors learned that patience is not optional here, it is part of the process. Another mistake that silently cancels progress is distraction. Many people attempt gentle movement while their mind is elsewhere, watching television, scrolling a phone, rushing through the motions just to get it done. The body notices this. When movement lacks attention, the nervous system does not fully register it as intentional activity. The signals sent to bones become weaker and inconsistent. This ritual works best when awareness is present, not intense, not forced, just attentive. Feeling the feet on the floor, noticing the shift of weight, allowing the breath to move naturally. This awareness strengthens the communication loop between brain, muscles, and bones. Without it, the ritual becomes mechanical. With it, the ritual becomes transformative. Doctors also noticed that people who rushed through the movements, trying to finish faster or add extra repetitions, often experienced stiffness or discomfort. This created doubt. Doubt led to hesitation, and hesitation broke consistency. The truth is that more is not better here. Slower is better. Smoother is better. Bones respond to quality of signal, not quantity. 5 focused minutes send a clearer message than 20 rushed ones. When people accepted this and slowed down, results improved dramatically. Strength returned without strain, confidence returned without fear, and the ritual became something people looked forward to instead of something they felt obligated to do. Another key discovery that surprised the doctors was the importance of timing. People in Japan often perform this ritual in the early morning, before the day's stress, noise, and distractions take over. At first glance, this may seem trivial, a habit chosen out of convenience or tradition, but the timing matters more than most people realize. The body, freshly rested from sleep, is in a state of heightened responsiveness. Circulation is steady. Hormone levels are optimized for repair. Muscles are relaxed yet ready. Performing the ritual at this moment sends a clear, uninterrupted message to bones that the body is alive, engaged, and ready to strengthen. Later in the day, after fatigue, decisions, and stress have accumulated, the same movements may not deliver the same signal. Timing, it turns out, is part of the secret that makes 5 minutes more effective than an hour of sporadic activity. Even subtle improvements in posture make a profound difference over time. At first, changes may be imperceptible to the eye. Shoulders may naturally relax. The chest may open slightly more. The spine may feel less compressed. These small adjustments have cascading effects. When posture improves, weight is distributed more evenly. Balance becomes easier. Joints experience less strain. Muscles work more efficiently. And bones, sensing these small shifts in load and alignment, adapt to support them. Doctors noticed that after weeks of consistent practice, patients reported feeling taller, lighter, and more stable. The external changes were mirrored by internal transformations, creating a feedback loop where confidence and physical capability reinforced one another. Finally, one of the most astonishing realizations from years of observation was how small daily habits outweigh sporadic intense workouts when it comes to bone health in later life. Many people assume lifting heavy weights, running long distances, or performing extreme exercises will protect their bones. But in reality, these approaches often lead to fatigue, injury, or inconsistency. Bones respond to signal, not drama. Gentle, consistent daily movement delivers that signal repeatedly, gradually reinforcing the internal framework of the skeleton. The ritual does not just improve bones, it improves circulation, balance, posture, and the nervous system's confidence in movement. And when these systems work together, they produce results that feel effortless, cumulative, and permanent. Those who understand this secret often find that what they thought was impossible, standing taller, walking longer, moving without fear, becomes inevitable. Some of the most compelling evidence for this ritual's effectiveness comes not from charts or lab reports, but from people's lives. Take the story of Mrs. Sato, a 72-year-old woman living in rural Japan. She had spent years moving cautiously, avoiding stairs and sitting more than she walked because she feared falling. Her independence was shrinking, and with it, her confidence. When she began practicing this 5-minute morning ritual, she expected little. Within weeks, she noticed subtle differences. Her steps felt more fluid, her balance slightly steadier, and for the first time in years, she could reach for objects on high shelves without hesitation. To her neighbors, these changes might have seemed small. To Mrs. Sato, they were life-changing. Each morning, she felt more alive, more in control, and more capable of participating fully in her own life. Another transformation that amazed doctors involved Mr. Takahashi, a 78-year-old retired teacher. He had suffered minor fractures in the past and had grown fearful of moving freely. Initially, he approached the ritual skeptically, unsure if 5 minutes could produce any tangible change. But after a month, he realized that he could walk longer distances without fatigue, stand from a chair with greater ease, and even garden again, something he had abandoned years prior. These improvements were not merely physical, they altered his mental state. He reported feeling less anxious about falling, more confident in daily activities, and surprisingly optimistic about the future.
Doctors noted that improvements in mental confidence were just as important as the gains in bone density and balance because fear is a silent saboteur of strength and mobility. Perhaps most inspiring of all is how this ritual impacts social and emotional well-being. Many older adults withdraw from activities because they believe their bodies are fragile. Isolation leads to loneliness, and loneliness has measurable negative effects on health. Patients who adopted the ritual often found themselves more willing to engage with friends, family, and community. They walked to the store, joined social gatherings, or simply spent time outside without fear. This wasn't an immediate miracle. It was a slow, compounding process where small daily improvements gave rise to a renewed sense of independence and joy. Observers often commented that the ritual not only strengthened bones, but seemed to awaken a sense of life that had quietly faded. And when people see real-life results like this, it reinforces the idea that 5 minutes of consistent, gentle movement is not trivial. It is transformational.
Integrating this ritual into daily life is surprisingly simple, yet that simplicity is what makes it powerful. The key is consistency, not duration. Many people make the mistake of thinking they need long workouts, expensive equipment, or complicated routines. They don't. 5 focused minutes, performed the same way every day, is all it takes to send the right signals to the body. Morning is ideal because the body is rested, circulation is steady, and muscles are more receptive. But consistency matters more than timing. Skipping days or performing movements haphazardly weakens the signals to the bones and muscles. The ritual becomes a habit, like brushing your teeth, not something optional, but something automatic. And when it becomes automatic, the compounding benefits begin silently, building strength, stability, and confidence without fanfare. Even with consistency, there are pitfalls that can slow or reverse progress. One of the most common mistakes is distraction. People often perform the movements while watching TV, scrolling a phone, or thinking about chores, treating it as a box to tick rather than a mindful practice. When the nervous system is distracted, the body interprets movement as background noise, not as a signal to rebuild. Attention matters. Feeling the weight shift in your feet, noticing the stretch in your spine, sensing the gentle tug in your limbs, all of this communicates directly to the bones, muscles, and balance systems. Missing these micro messages diminishes results. Doctors emphasize that mindfulness is just as important as movement. The ritual works best when the body and mind are present together. Over weeks and months, the compounding effect becomes astonishing. Small improvements that were once imperceptible suddenly become undeniable. Balance feels more natural. Walking feels effortless. Steps feel confident. Even seemingly minor activities, reaching for a high shelf, climbing stairs, or bending to pick up a grocery bag, become easier and safer. The body begins to operate as a coordinated system rather than disconnected parts. Circulation improves, bones strengthen, posture corrects, and confidence grows. Patients often report feeling younger, lighter, and more capable, even decades older than when they first started. What began as 5 minutes of gentle motion has quietly rewritten the story of their physical independence. And for anyone watching, the lesson is clear. The smallest, most consistent actions often produce the largest transformations.
Fear is one of the most insidious obstacles to maintaining mobility. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It whispers, subtly reshaping the way people move and live. The fear of falling, of injury, or of not being able to recover can quietly dictate every decision, every step, every movement. People stop reaching, stop bending, stop stepping out of their comfort zones, all in an effort to stay safe. But in doing so, they reinforce weakness. Their bodies adapt to caution, not capability. The ritual works against this fear not by ignoring it, but by creating repeated, safe experiences that prove the body is still capable. Each day the movements are performed, confidence grows. Step by step, the brain relearns that strength exists, that balance is reliable, and that independence is still possible. Fear diminishes when the body demonstrates its capability consistently.
The emotional resilience that emerges from this process is profound. Many elderly individuals report a renewed sense of purpose after committing to this ritual. They begin to feel connected to their bodies again rather than trapped by them. Tasks that were once anxiety-inducing, like walking to the corner store or gardening, start to feel achievable. This sense of competence spills over into other areas of life, fostering mental clarity, motivation, and a willingness to engage with the world. Doctors found that those who experienced these emotional benefits were more likely to maintain the ritual, creating a positive feedback loop. Movement builds confidence, confidence builds consistency, and consistency builds both physical and mental resilience. In this way, the ritual is not just about bones, it is about reclaiming life. Perhaps the most transformative aspect of all is the psychological liberation that comes with regained mobility. Independence is not merely physical, it is deeply tied to self-esteem and identity. Patients who were once hesitant, tentative, or reliant on others reported feeling a sense of freedom they had long forgotten. They walked taller, moved with intention, and approached daily life with renewed optimism. Even minor improvements, when experienced consistently, create a ripple effect that reshapes how people perceive themselves. The ritual's 5 minutes a day becomes a declaration. I am still capable. I am still strong. I am still alive. And when the mind believes this, the body follows. For viewers, this is not theoretical. It is a blueprint for reclaiming control, mobility, and confidence at any age.
Long-term results from this simple 5-minute ritual are nothing short of remarkable. Doctors who monitored patients over months observed measurable improvements in bone density, balance, and overall mobility. What makes these results extraordinary is that they occur without aggressive workouts, expensive treatments, or invasive procedures. Bones, muscles, and joints gradually strengthen in harmony, and the body begins to move as a coordinated, resilient system. Small changes compound over time. A slight improvement in balance today prevents a stumble next week. A subtle increase in bone density this month reduces fracture risk months later. It is a slow, silent, but unstoppable transformation that reinforces the idea that consistent, mindful action trumps sporadic intensity. The measurable improvements are mirrored in real-life capabilities. Patients report walking longer distances without fatigue, climbing stairs without hesitation, and completing daily chores with newfound ease. One particularly inspiring story comes from Mrs. Nakamura, a 75-year-old widow who had begun using a cane to move around her home. Within 3 months of consistent practice, she was able to leave the cane behind for short walks and even resume gardening, a passion she had abandoned years earlier. Doctors were astonished by the rate of her progress. Her confidence, independence, and overall quality of life improved alongside measurable physiological changes. These stories are not anomalies. They are evidence of what happens when the body receives consistent, focused signals of capability. Perhaps the most compelling aspect of these long-term results is their psychological impact. Regaining mobility does not just strengthen the body, it transforms the mind. Patients often describe a renewed sense of purpose, a regained identity, and a revitalized approach to life. Simple daily actions become empowering rituals that reinforce control and autonomy. Every safe step taken without fear, every movement executed with intention, reinforces the belief that the body is capable, strong, and resilient. For viewers, this serves as a powerful lesson. Reclaiming physical independence is not only possible, it is measurable, sustainable, and life-changing, if approached correctly and consistently. This is why the ritual is more than movement. It is a roadmap for restoring freedom, confidence, and vitality at any age.
Even after achieving noticeable improvements, many people unknowingly sabotage their progress through small but critical mistakes. One of the most common errors is inconsistency. Life can get busy, routines can be interrupted, and suddenly the ritual is skipped for days or weeks. This may seem harmless, but bones and muscles respond to trends, not one-off efforts.
Missing days weakens the cumulative signal the body relies on to rebuild strength and maintain balance. Doctors emphasize that consistency, even if imperfect, is far more powerful than sporadic intensity. It's the rhythm of daily action that reinforces bone density and coordination, not bursts of extreme effort that can't be maintained over time. Another mistake is performing the movements without focus or attention. It's easy to go through the motions while multitasking, watching television, checking your phone, or rushing to finish. But when the mind is distracted, the body interprets the movement as background noise rather than an intentional signal. Bones and muscles require a conscious connection to respond effectively. Mindfulness transforms each motion from mere activity into a powerful communication with the skeletal system. Feeling the weight shift in your feet, noticing the stretch in your spine, and sensing the gentle engagement of muscles ensures that the nervous system recognizes the ritual as a meaningful stimulus. Without this awareness, even consistent practice produces diminished results. Finally, overexertion can backfire. Some people, eager to see faster results, attempt to increase the intensity, speed, or repetitions beyond what the body can safely handle. This often causes stiffness, minor injuries, or frustration, which then discourages continued practice. The secret to long-term success is respecting the body's current abilities and maintaining smooth, controlled movements. Less is more. Gentle, focused, and deliberate execution sends the clearest signals to bones and muscles. Over time, as the body adapts, small increases can be safely added. Understanding these pitfalls and learning to avoid them is crucial. When approached correctly, the ritual becomes a reliable, sustainable path to stronger bones, better balance, and greater confidence, without risk of setbacks. Tracking progress is one of the most overlooked but powerful tools in maintaining long-term results. Many people assume that unless they can see dramatic physical changes immediately, their efforts aren't working. But the truth is that progress often starts internally before becoming visible externally. Doctors recommend simple tracking methods. Note how many steps you can take without fatigue, how easily you can climb stairs, or even subtle changes in posture and balance. Writing these observations down each week creates a record of growth that is tangible and motivating. Over time, these small wins accumulate, revealing a steady upward trajectory that reinforces the brain's belief in the body's capabilities. This awareness becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. As you recognize your own improvement, your commitment to the ritual deepens, creating an unstoppable cycle of progress. Celebrating milestones, no matter how small, is equally important. Often people undervalue minor achievements, dismissing them as insignificant. Yet the human brain thrives on recognition and reward. Successfully standing for longer periods, walking confidently without support, or even completing the 5-minute routine every day for a week are all victories that deserve acknowledgement. Doctors found that patients who intentionally marked these milestones through journaling, sharing progress with friends or family, or even just mentally noting their achievements maintained higher motivation and adherence to the ritual. Celebrating progress transforms the ritual from a mundane task into a meaningful part of daily life, reinforcing positive behavior and emotional engagement with the body's transformation. Maintaining motivation over months requires understanding that change is gradual, not instantaneous. It's easy to feel discouraged when improvement seems subtle or slow. But the compounding nature of consistent effort means that every day builds upon the last, eventually producing dramatic, life-altering results. Psychological strategies like setting small weekly goals, visualizing improvements, and reminding oneself of the long-term benefits keep motivation high. Pairing the ritual with other enjoyable activities, such as morning coffee or light music, helps it become a cherished habit rather than a chore. Over time, the ritual shifts from an obligation to a source of pride and empowerment, sustaining both physical and emotional transformation.
This is why so many patients who stick with it for months experience not only stronger bones and better balance, but also renewed confidence, vitality, and independence.
Some of the most compelling evidence of this ritual's effectiveness comes from stories of everyday people whose lives were quietly transformed. Take Mr. Fujimoto, a 77-year-old retired carpenter. For years he avoided stairs, fearing the consequences of a misstep. Walking for more than a few minutes caused discomfort, and even simple tasks felt daunting. When he began this 5-minute ritual, he was skeptical. The movements were gentle, almost trivial, yet within weeks he noticed a subtle change. Climbing a single flight of stairs no longer left him breathless. Within a few months, he could navigate his neighborhood confidently. What astonished his doctors was not just the physical improvement, but the shift in his demeanor. Mr. Fujimoto walked taller, smiled more often, and began reconnecting with his community. It was as if reclaiming mobility restored a part of his identity that had been dormant for years. Another striking transformation came from Mrs. Hoshino, a 74-year-old grandmother who had gradually reduced her daily walks due to fear of falls. Her independence was eroding. She relied increasingly on family support for tasks she once managed effortlessly. After committing to the ritual, she noticed incremental changes that at first seemed almost insignificant. She could reach higher cabinets, stand for longer periods, and bend without wincing. But these small victories snowballed. Within a few months, she resumed light gardening, her favorite hobby. Each successful step built her confidence further, creating a psychological momentum that encouraged even more movement. Doctors found that the combination of physical improvement and restored confidence was far more impactful than any isolated exercise or treatment she had tried in the past. It wasn't just stronger bones, it was a revitalized life. What makes these stories especially inspiring is how subtle actions compound into dramatic life changes over time. Many viewers might assume that regaining independence at 70 or 80 is impossible, but these transformations show otherwise. Each day, the ritual delivers a quiet, almost invisible signal to the body, slowly rebuilding strength, balance, and coordination. And the suspense lies in the fact that at first, you might not notice these improvements yourself. But give it weeks, give it months. Suddenly, the small changes reveal themselves in big ways. Steps become confident, tasks once feared are accomplished easily, and life begins to feel expansive again. These narratives serve as a powerful reminder that slow, consistent action, performed mindfully and deliberately, can rewrite the story of aging itself. For viewers, the question becomes impossible to ignore. Will you start today and experience your own transformation?
As we come to the close of this journey, it's important to pause and reflect on everything you've just learned. What started as a simple 5-minute ritual is now revealed as something far more profound than mere movement. It is a quiet, daily conversation with your body, a signal that says you are capable, you are strong, you are alive. Every sway, every stretch, every deliberate breath you take is not just exercise, it's an act of empowerment, a reclaiming of the independence that time may have tried to take away. And here's the truth that many people don't realize until they experience it themselves. Transformation doesn't happen in a single dramatic moment. It happens quietly, subtly, day by day, until one morning you notice you can move without hesitation, balance without fear, and live without restriction. That is the power of consistency, mindfulness, and respect for your body's natural wisdom. But the journey doesn't end here. What you do next will determine whether this knowledge remains theoretical or becomes your reality. If you commit, even for just 5 minutes each morning, to these mindful movements, to paying attention to your posture, to listening to your body, the compounding effects will continue long after this video ends. Circulation will improve, bones will strengthen, balance will become second nature, and confidence will return in ways you never imagined. The small victories you achieve each day are the ones that accumulate into life-changing transformations. And remember, it's not just your physical body that benefits. Your mind, your independence, and your sense of self-worth grow alongside it. So here's the challenge I want to leave you with. Take these next 5 minutes for yourself tomorrow morning. Do it intentionally. Do it mindfully. Feel each movement, notice the subtle signals your body sends, and trust the process. Then do it again the next day and the next. Watch how your confidence begins to return, how your steps feel lighter, how your posture improves, and how your body quietly rebuilds itself from the inside out. And as you witness these changes, take a moment to celebrate them, because each small improvement is proof that you are capable of reclaiming your strength, your independence, and your vitality, no matter your age. Finally, if you found this journey valuable, insightful, or inspiring, subscribe now, not just to stay updated, but to make a commitment to yourself. Let this be the moment you decide to act, to restore your body and mind, and to honor the life you deserve. Every day is a new opportunity, and every movement you make is a step toward a stronger, more confident, and more independent you. Don't let fear, hesitation, or doubt hold you back any longer. Start today, be consistent, and let this ritual quietly transform your life. Because the body remembers, and it responds to care, attention, and intention. Your transformation is waiting, and it begins with the very next movement.